Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion, plus great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor, too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall. It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com.
Hello and welcome to the post-FSU vs. Louisville edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast. Brought to you by Alumni Hall, where you will find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family. Please visit Alumni Hall at alumnihall.com or at their Tallahassee store location at 1817 Thomasville Road. My name is Pat Burnham. I'm a football writer for the Osceola and host of Seminole Sidelines. I am joined today by Osceola publisher Jerry Cutts, managing editor Bob Ferrante, Osceola recruiting analyst Charles Fishbein, and Osceola football analyst and former FSU offensive lineman Mark Salva. But before we get started, I want to remind our Osceola subscribers that you can log on to the Osceola and click on the Alumni Hall ad to receive a 20% discount code for online purchases and your membership card to present for in-store purchases. All right, guys, FSU fell to 0-4 after falling to Louisville 31-23 on Saturday night. The loss left FSU winless after 4 games for the first time since 1974. The game was a tale of two halves, with Louisville taking a 31-13 lead into the locker room at halftime. FSU came out looking like a totally different team in the second half. I mean, not even close to what we saw in the first half, and rallied to close the gap to 31-23 and had a chance to tie the game on a last possession drive, but that fell short on a Mackenzie Milton interception on a pass to Andrew Parchment that was deep into actually inside the 10-yard line and was intercepted by Louisville. That ultimately ended the game. Coaches, players, and fans alike are going to want to burn the film from the first half. But, Jerry, you said coming into this year that sometimes with a very young football team and a program that's trying to reestablish not only culture but get some more talented kids into the program, that the results aren't always going to be shown on the scoreboard. That may be the case in this game because there are some things coming out of the second half. A dominant defensive performance shut Louisville out. Obviously, much different on third down defense, which we'll get into later. And the offense found some consistencies and probably more importantly, some big plays. They've had some issues running the ball consistently, you could argue, but certainly found big plays in the running game, including 2 long touchdowns that got it back into the game. But they certainly have some things they can build off of as they prepare for Syracuse and moving deeper into their schedule. So let's talk about the first half. It did not look like a team that was ready to play football. There were some alluding to that in the post-game press conference by a couple of the players. And they basically, you are who you are. You are what the film says you are. And what we saw in the first half, Mark, was not very good. What was your perspective on the first half from your seat?
For me, looking at it, they probably were all geeked up, and I think they were anxious to show that they're a good football team. I think they wanted to go out and start well. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm sure, of course, they did, right?
Right.
But to the point where Louisville used that to their advantage. That first touchdown was a result of our guys being way too aggressive. And I'm sure during the preparation that it was hammered on those safeties that when they run that stretch play, you have to fill that gap and you have to fill it hard and aggressively. And when they faked that stretch play, that safety went flying, did a 40-yard dash right into that to fill the gap. And man, we had a corner on outside leverage, and they ran a post, and that was an easy touchdown, right? And I think that just deflated the air went out of the balloon at that point, right? Mm-hmm. So from there, it was an uphill battle, and then to go on offense, and not be productive. Just kind of, oh, here we go again. And of course, we're a mentally fragile football team. And we've all agreed, and we said it here for weeks now, we need something good to happen early. And in their exuberance to show that, Louisville took advantage of that. I guess, kudos to them because they took advantage of that and got a big play.
Well, and, it's not a excuse, but it's a note that they went after the safety on that side would have been Brendan Gant, who was filling in for Tracy Wood, the safety that was Sidney Williams, who was got the targeting foul and had to sit out the first half. So, I guess if you're going to design a play to open a series, you probably go after maybe a spot you think is weak. And so at any rate, I do agree.
That's what you get with a young football team. You said it, Jerry. Yeah. We're a young football team. Right. And we're still learning these lessons. And unfortunately, they're painful lessons because there's a lot at stake. These aren't young players learning it when a game's already in hand and they're starting to get some reps. They're learning it the first series of the game. And it shows up. Young mistakes. I mean, you watch the defense, there's false steps everywhere. And all it takes is one false step and there's a seam, right? And that's a young football team. We're not polished by any stretch. I know the guys want to play hard and they do play hard, but we're just not there. We're just not.
Yeah. And when we'll get into it more in this podcast, but the remarkable thing to me was that we recovered from it somehow emotionally. And we'll get into that later.
Yeah, and y'all mentioned the defense, and let's talk about it. The defense is what got FSU in a hole early. They could not get off the field. It's probably not a record. I'm sure somebody else has done this before, but Louisville was 8 of 10 on third down. It didn't matter if it was 3rd and 4, 3rd and 8. Third down was their friend. Couldn't get off the field, and it had nothing to do with what the offense was doing. The offense caught a lot of flack last week because they could not sustain drives that hurt the defense. The later the game got, that was not the issue this week. It was the defense could not get the ball back to the offense. 8 of 10 on third down, 13 of 20 in the first half. The last 2 weeks on third down, which is 65% conversion rate for the offense. Mark, what do they need to do? I mean, they didn't do much differently schematically in the second half against Louisville than they did the first half. And Louisville was only 1 of 8 on third down in the second half. You're playing the same kids. You're playing the same schemes. What changed from the first half to the second half for FSU on defense?
Well, first of all, we got them off the field the first series, and we had a late hit, right? And when you look at it on TV, it might have been a little questionable, but we're not in a position to render a judgment, let official render a judgment on us. And so that got the drive, sustained the drive, and they scored the big touchdown. The rest of them, from what I could tell, they were in a lot of 3rd and mediums, 3rd and 4s, 3rd and whatevers. And you have a running quarterback, and it looks like our game plan was to not play tight man or man under with this team because of the threat of the quarterback run. So by virtue of that, we were playing a lot of 2 deep quarters with, underneath zone. And, in those underneath zones, we just weren't precise enough. We just weren't patterning enough. And all they were doing was running a lot of hooks and a few crossing routes. And the quarterback did a good job. He gets the ball and he got it out of his hand. All he did was hit the guy that had the biggest cushion, because if you look at it, whether they were 3 and 1 or 2 and 2, they were just running outs and curls is all they were doing. And he just hit the guy that was off or the guy that would sit in the zone. And our guys just weren't tight enough on the zones. I think what changed in the second half was we were able to get them in more 3rd and longs. And in getting them in more 3rd and longs, it gave us a better chance of success. And now I think guys got a better feel for their passing game and what the adjustment was we got to tighten up and, the kind of routes that they were running. So we just kind of got a feel for the game and a feel for how they were doing things. I guess the answer is come out faster is we got to we just got to be better prepared, and that's on the coaches. I mean, that's the bottom line. There was just too many gaps in coverage.
Yeah, listen, they did shore it up a little bit in the second half, but that's been something that's consistently plagued this team is too much success. I believe that Malik Cunningham was a little bit, maybe 50% completion percentage in the second half, but he was 18 of 26 in the first half for 227 yards. And
we made him look like a Heisman Trophy candidate.
And yeah, that's been a repetitive theme for opposing quarterbacks. But they did. They actually very good in the second half. 7 of 14 for 37 yards. Louisville had 79 yards in the second half total, rushing and passing. So great job by the defense recovering from that. Now, listen, one of my questions coming into this game, I'm going to throw this to Bob so we get you involved in the conversation, Bob. I wondered coming into this game, was Louisville going to be Ole Miss bad or UCF good? And I wondered whether FSU was going to be Notre Dame good or FSU was going to be Wake Forest bad. What we saw from both teams was a little bit of both of those things. All right, and I want everybody to answer this question. Who is FSU? What version of the Louisville game is FSU actually? Is it the floundering, unfocused football team we saw in the first half, or is it the play your ass off, we're going to fight and scratch and claw for every point, and you're going to have to do it to team that we saw in the second half? Which Bob, I'll let you take it from here.
I think the identity is one of inconsistency, but a team that's going to fight you. And that's kind of, it's tough for us to watch each week because we don't know how the team is going to perform, but we see enough positives and we're just awaiting that big positive, that actual win as we see the results unfold. I didn't think Louisville was going to be Ole Miss bad. I didn't think that Florida State was going to be that bad early. We did discuss how Florida State could not get stuck in a shootout, could not get behind early, and then all of a sudden you're down huge. And how do you run? If your identity on offense is to run, even behind a banged up offensive line, how does that affect play calling and consistency of just what you're trying to do? So, yeah, I'm kind of at a loss with this team, but again, you see enough positives to kind of make you think that they're moving towards something because they're fighting.
Mark, what about you? What did you think after? I mean, we saw two different versions of this team in one game.
Yeah, it's a young football team. It's an inconsistent. We're both of those teams. We're going to have some really flashy, outstanding plays, and we're going to have some really boneheaded things. And unfortunately, to win a football game, you can't have a propensity of boneheaded plays and inconsistent football. You talk about the running game. I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but if you're running the ball on 1st and 10, and you lose 2 yards, now you're behind the chains, and that's what gets us in trouble. With the consistency of getting 3 or 4 yards on that first down is what we need. And yeah, we pop some big runs, but that's not sustainable in terms of just, what you need in the moment consistently in the early part of a series of downs. You need positive yards, however you get that. And so that's a young football team. And the same thing defensively, missed tackles, late hits, blown coverages. And then you see great plays, great sacks, great, plays on the ball. It's just the inconsistency is just maddening because you see the potential, right? We all see the potential. And, we're used to, as Florida State fans, we're used to seeing those great plays more often than not. And it's painful to watch. But we're a young football team, and that's what you get.
I mean, I think they showed growth. Last year they got blown out in games and quit, and they could have easily quit down 31-7. I thought, man, this is going to be a blowout. I really thought Louisville was going to score 50 at halftime. And they came out the second half, and they didn't give up a point. I think that says a lot about their defense that they didn't quit. Yeah, Louisville, took their foot off the gas a little bit, but you know what? Florida State made them pay for what they did on that side of the ball. It's frustrating because This is really the first game since the Notre Dame game I really watched from beginning to end. And I don't know how Mark feels about this. We talked about the team being too cute. The 4th and 2 call where they had the team look to the sideline and snap. This is killing me, man. I believe the one thing that they're doing is, and you talk about even in the first half, they're down 10-0 and they go for it on 4th down. I think they're beating themselves as a coaching staff. They're trying so hard to get something positive that, you know what, let the game come to you. College football is such a long game. And if you could just get to the 4th quarter and give yourself, that one drive where it's 4th and 4, and it was a long 4th and 4 in the first half, and they go for it on 4th down, they could be down 24-7 in the second half, and it's not such a big mountain to climb. I just think, honestly, the coaching staff has to step back and say, listen, how do we get to the 3rd and 4th, late in the 3rd quarter, like we were in the Notre Dame game, and just give ourselves a chance? I think these guys could pull one of these games out or pull out multiple games if they just give themselves a chance of not getting blown out in the first half or putting themselves in such a hole. That's the frustrating thing to me is they're in these games. Bowden used to always talk about, hey, it was one play here, one play. It is just 1 or 2 plays that's changing these games against them. And they're helping these other teams by going for it on 4th down. Or that play to the sideline where they look to the sideline and snap the ball, I almost stopped watching the game at that point. It just gets frustrating to watch that get week in and week out. They're killing themselves, and they need to stop it from a coaching staff.
Well, and Mark, you addressed some maturity on the concerns with the coaching staff last week, and listen, I heard one or more of the coaches talk about the team needing to learn how to finish. I would think you can go back to Jacksonville State, and that applies to the coaching staff as well. Are they taking too many chances on 4th down? We're seeing this repeatedly. Bob, you and I watched it from the press box. What are your Fish to talk about what Fish was talking about? What do you think about the opportunities they're taking on 4th down with this team that needs some confidence?
I struggle with this one. I think they're 1 of 8 on the season. I might be off on that on 4th down opportunities, and they haven't been a lot of 4th and 1s. You've had different distances. Didn't they have a gift on Saturday with the penalty on that 1 4th down pass over the middle that I think McKenzie, tried to look downfield. So you just haven't had a lot of success, but you almost feel like from Norvell's standpoint that you have to do it. You have to keep your offense on the field. You have to give your defense a bit of a breather. I totally get it. I just want the 4th down opportunities to be more calculated as far as when you go for it, but also the play call, to the point of, Mackenzie Milton looking at the sideline. That was straight up a trick play that we saw in practice. We saw them rep it. I think it did work in practice. Obviously, it didn't work well against Louisville. You've got to put out your absolute best 4th down plays, or this just isn't going to work. And I think it's going to have a confidence backfire, honestly, if they don't make some of these 4th downs.
I think a lot of times these things are talked about during the week, and this is how we're going to approach the game. This is what we're going to do. The caveat is, how's the game going? If half your plays or more than half your plays that you run have been negative plays, I think you need to rethink your strategy on that. You had 3 chances to get 10 yards and you didn't do it. What makes you think you're going to get another 3 or 4 on this next one? And sometimes you just got to say, you know what? We're in a bad rhythm right now, bad feel, punt it.
Even on the final drive, that ball deep, that's a low percentage pass. Even if the guy got open, it's just, I don't know. They're coaching, the coaching and play calling. It's like they're in a preseason and they're just trying everything to get ready for the regular season. There's just too much. I talked about it last week. They're too cute with too much crap. I just cut it out. You guys run the ball well. Pick up 5 yards, run hitches, run quick slants, move the ball, move the chains, play field position, punt the ball. The defense plays well enough for them to stay in the games. Everybody wants to blame the defense. I think the offense puts them in bad positions. It was 10-0. The defense had to go right back on the field on a short field. They're down 17-0, and then Louisville just starts pounding away. Where's the defense out?
To your point.
I'm just frustrated watching it, man.
To your point, Fish, the game was 17-0, and our offense had gotten 1 first down in the first quarter. One. So, and the score was 17-0 at that point.
Yeah, that means the defense is out there more than they should be. I mean, like, you're just wearing the defense out, and they're good enough on the defense, but they're not deep enough. So you're basically putting them at a disadvantage when it should be a strength. And here you are just having waste. I talk about this a lot in college football, where you could waste possessions by just like you give away possessions. There's possessions maybe you don't score, but you had 8-10 plays. You keep your defense off the field. You punt the ball. You play field position. I don't think they're playing smart football. You could talk about the players. It's so far they have called, and I think Norvell's a heck of a coach. I do. I still think he is. You could see the designs of their plays look good, and they're going to work when they have better players. But I just think they're trying too hard as a coaching staff to have something positive, that they're trying to force it instead of letting it come to them. That's just my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's just how I feel when I'm watching them, that everything's sport.
The other thing about it, too, is, one of the great coaching axioms, and Coach Bowden always said this, is when you think of tough situations, you think of players, not plays. Well, you think about our players. Our best players are our running backs. Those are the best playmakers that we have. And what are the chances on a 4th and 4 that you're going to turn around and hand it with our offensive line and make it, right? We tried the tricky little look to the sideline thing, but heck, if all the offensive linemen and tight ends are in a 3-point stance, then the defense is taught, don't come out of your stance. I mean, that's, stay alert on stuff like that.
But Mark, I think one of the things they could do is you take someone like Toafili and you get him, you kind of do like, I don't know if they call it diamond route, but basically have him come out of the backfield, come out almost on a slant, and then cut across the middle of the field and just dump him the ball for 4 or 5 yards. Let him get one-on-one with the linebacker. Toafili's not going to get covered by a linebacker. Get him in a positive situation and throw the ball to him. You don't need a whole lot of time. You're not forcing the O-line to block for 4 or 5 seconds. You are just they got to utilize the guys they have, and I don't think they are. That's just my opinion.
To go back to your point before we get way away from it, you'd mentioned that you thought the offense was hurting the defense, and I think it did against Wake Forest. But if you go back and look at the drive chart in the first half of the Louisville game, the offense did not put the defense. They had their second and third drives were 7-play drives by the offense. Louisville had 10, 10, 15, and 10 in 4 consecutive drives. The offense did not account for that. So against Wake Forest, it did. And the later you get into a football game, the more sustaining drives matters for your offense, not to hurt your defense. But the defense got hurt early in this game. I don't think it had as much to do with the offense as it did against Wake Forest if you go back and look at the drive chart. But to your point, yes, later in the game, when they did not sustain drives, it kind of equaled out as the game went on from a drive chart step. But yes, I think that was the case against Wake. And now you go talk about the play calling. Now, Mark, they did stay committed to the run game. They only ran for 15 yards in the first half, and then they came back out and obviously ran for 26 times in the second half. Is that an improvement over what we saw last week from a coaching perspective, sticking with what they know is the strength of their offense, which is running the ball, if you call it a strength?
That's a tough one. The deal is this: they hit on something in the second half. They hit on something formationally, and they hit on a scheme that brought them a lot of success. And I think early in the game, Louisville was doing a lot of slanting, a lot of stunning, and it played havoc with our running game schemes. And look, we're playing with a lot of hurt guys right now up front, and we're not getting a tremendous push off the ball. And that's hurting us a little bit. And so in the second half, we went to more, we ran what I used to call the old sprint draw we used to run with Amp Lee all the time, right? Where you hand the ball off and the offensive line just kind of sets and guys, all that stuff happens in front of you, and you lock onto them, and then you kind of pick the hole. That's the in the first half, the unbalanced run. That's what that play was. We hit it a couple times in the second half. A little bit more zone to try to take care of all that stunning they were doing. So they hit on something, which credit to the coaching staff there, and that they got something going. But to your point, we got to go into games with a better plan. So if if they do, if this, then that, and have answers earlier in the game. Because look, a sustained running game is critical to keeping you in front of the chains, like I said before. And where we get in trouble is we run the ball and all of a sudden we're in 2nd and 12. And we got to have a better execution, better plan, all of it. So it goes on both of them.
I made the point that, in the first half, on first down, when we did run it, we had only one, what I call positive run. We got 7 yards once. The other runs, we got nothing, -2, 1, 2. And, now you're in 2nd and 8, or 2nd and 9, or 2nd and 10. And you can't get anything going. The second half, we were getting, really after they got up 31-7, that's when we started having success in our running game.
Yeah, but Jerry, this wasn't a case, because, for me as an offensive line coach and as a play caller, those when you're running the ball consistently and you're getting nice push off the line, sometimes early in the game, those are going to be 2-3 yard runs. And as the game wears on, those become 5-yard runs and those become 7 yards. It wasn't a case of that. It wasn't a case of keep pounding it. And, this running game is going to evolve and we're going to get a better feel for it. This was, we were getting pushed back. Guys were coming free and we hit on something and cracked a few big runs,
Yeah. 7 plays of rushing offense accounted for 189 yards. 16 plays, 28 other plays accounted for 16 rushing yards. So to your point, Mark, you found big plays in the running game because of 2 really great individual runs, but you didn't sustain it throughout the course of the game at any one point.
Yeah, it wasn't like just keep pounding the zone, and all, Earl Campbell, or Greg Jones just, making guys wear down and these games become bigger. It wasn't a case of that. It was a case of we hit on something and we took advantage of it, because those were great runs, by the way. I mean, those 2 guys, Corbin and Ward, I'm a fan. They're really good.
Yeah, Trayshawn Ward was the story of the spring, and it might be the story of the fall for this football team as it moves forward offensively. Speaking of offense, Jordan Travis was not available. Mackenzie Milton was listed as a starter even without that fact. FSU had its most productive night passing the ball of any game this year, had single-game highs in completions and yardage. Obviously, Jordan Travis will be back at some point. I don't know when. Hopefully for the benefit of this team next week. But how do you handle the quarterback situation moving forward, knowing that you found one of the questions coming in this game? Would the offense be more consistent with the same guy at the helm for the entirety of the game? Unfortunately, the reason we might have found that out was because Jordan was not available. But what do you do if you're Mike Norvell and Kenny Dillingham moving forward with the quarterback situation?
Who wants to go first?
I'll go in. Watching Milton, and I wanted him so bad at FSU. I got to be honest. It's hard to watch. He plants his foot. Sometimes it looks like his whole leg goes dead and he can't move. And the kid's giving everything he has. I personally hope he doesn't get hurt. That's just I hope he doesn't get hurt. The kid's a great kid. He's working hard. If Jordan's healthy, I'd rather go with him. I just think that he gives you a lot more with the ability to run. He's not as great of a passer, but they need somebody that's mobile behind that pocket. If they could run the ball effectively and Jordan could give them anything in the passing game, that's the route I would go.
Bob?
I think we're still dealing with an issue where we're going to have 2 injured quarterbacks, and we're going to see this kind of scenario unfold game after game. There were times where McKenzie, with a clean pocket, didn't look like he had good footwork, like he could really drive off that back foot. It looked like he was better on the run at times, slinging it instead of clean pocket with a nice passing lane. And I think we're just going to see these kinds of issues moving forward. I don't know the Jordan Travis timetable. It's hard to figure out. They do seem to need a change of pace quarterback. I think for the moment, you stick with McKenzie as your starter. But if Jordan's not ready, put in some packages for Chubba. whether it's, say, 3rd and 2, goal line, red zone, whatnot. He needs playing time. Bottom line, Shuba needs playing time.
I'm going to be the third vote, and I'm going to go completely a different way than either of the first two. Just for not for fun. I mean, that's the reality of this. I think you just need some continuity on your offense. You know, we've been playing musical offensive linemen. We don't have to play musical quarterbacks. You know, if you think Milton can do it, stay with him until he, can't. But we need to find some stability on this offense if we want consistency.
Mark?
Yeah, this is a tough one because the truth of the matter is, I think Bob's right. One of them's going to get hurt, and whichever one plays is going to get hurt, and we're going to need the other one.
Exactly.
And that's just where we are. And
get 12 and 18 ready to go.
Do what now? Get
12 and 18 warmed up.
Yeah, I mean,
get Duffy lined up, man. We need to bring him in.
So. Yeah, we do. But
that kid is going to be—he's got a chance to be really good fit. I can't wait to see him get.
Hey, listen, a guy at Rutgers just enrolled like last week. That's a freshman for them. We got to get this kid like ready now. Like there has to be a loophole to get him at Florida State if Rutgers got some high school kid to enter their quarterback competition like a week ago. So let's go, Duffy.
You got any other left?
Yeah. Dude, you don't want to see me out there. I'll get freaking annihilated.
But I mean, I get the feel that McKenzie is really our best chance in the passing game, simply because I think the whole playbook's open, except for the quarterback running stuff. But it's just open. It's just the passing game is where, because we just can't line up and just continue to run the ball, or else we're going to have 11 in the box. You get Travis in the game, we're going to have 11 in the box.
A lot of people spread offense, and Mike has too, without the benefit of a running quarterback. I mean, most of his guys at Memphis were not running quarterbacks, and they were very successful doing what they did. So now,
I mean, you need an equalizer. You need a good running game, and you need an equalizer. And it's either in the old days, it used to be you either ran the option or you threw the ball off. And the equalizer's got to be the passing game. You know, if all we can do is run and occasionally throw a bomb with Travis, I don't think that's a recipe for sustained success. I think people are just, like I said, we're going to have 11 in the box before you know it.
You're too dependent. Listen, right now, my concern with the offense is it's too dependent on big plays, right? We saw that last night. We see it in just about every game. It can't consistently do anything running the ball. We see that go back to the 28 carries, 16 yards. And Louisville's not the best run defense they're going to face all year. So you got to be. I think you got to be able to do both things. But hey,
the only thing I hesitate with McKenzie though is that I don't know that we get a lot of help from our receivers either. You know, we're not very good there.
So. We saw a lot of 12 personnel. What did you think about that? That's more 12 personnel than I think we've seen at any time this year from the offense.
I love 12 personnel. That's like my favorite formation in football, having 2 tight ends, 1 back. Just gives the defense so many problems. The question is, can you take advantage of it? With the running game and the tight ends, throwing the passing. It's a great play action pass. It's a great hard-nosed running game formation. I mean, I love it, but I don't know that we use it in that way necessarily.
I'm going to flip over to the defense real quick. Obviously, they played much. We've already documented they played much better in the second half. But I think one of the things that I noticed is after that first touchdown, which I believe they were in some kind of cover one scheme. I don't know if it was man free or exactly what.
The long one?
Yeah.
No.
Safety just jumped it.
He just jumped it. Pat, they ran max. It was a 2 receiver route.
Was it cover 3? Was it covered 2 though?
No, yeah, it was like quarters. I bet it was quarters. I think it was quarters, and
they ran play action kind of thing at him. And
they faked the stretch. They max protected, right? So they had a tight end winged over there. I'm sure the safeties canned the wing, and when the wing blocked, he came flying.
But what we saw after that was where I was going with this.
I'm sorry.
We saw a ton of cover 2, more so than I can remember seeing. Jerry, you were sitting watching that from the bird's eye view of the end zone. What did you see, and did you like I want to ask everybody. I think we saw a little bit more man zone coverage than we had man. Is that what they need to do moving forward?
Well, in the first half, it didn't much work, did it, what they were doing? because like Mark and I were talking about earlier, they kept running those little hook routes into the zone, and the quarterback had easy reads and hit the open guy, right? And the second half, somehow or another, we defended that. I think we were doing the same thing. Defensively.
It was third and 8 instead of third and 4. So they were having to run deeper routes, and we had a little more success covering the deeper routes.
And their quarterback's not the most accurate quarterback. He's going to go through spots where he was very accurate in the first half. Like that, you can't expect him to be like that for 4 quarters. At least you have to hope. You got to keep your fingers crossed. But I thought defensively, like they put them in deeper spots. They weren't in 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 2. They were in 2nd and 8 and 3rd and 8, and that helps your defense out a lot.
Well, and to your point, they only had 42 yards rushing in the second half. Of course, now Louisville didn't run the ball very well all game. They only had 89 in the first.
No, they didn't.
So I mean, again, for some reason, and it looked like because they decided to go less man and more zone, the defense did play better as the night went on. And I guess I think that's something they probably need to look at moving forward, continuing to do that, because we've seen what happens in man coverage, and this seems like the more they repped it in that game, the better they got at it.
I mean, the plan was obviously take care of the stretch run with the safeties filling, play zone so we don't have to turn our backs on the quarterback that runs, and that bit us in the butt in the first half. That was the plan. And when we were able to get them and contain the quarterback running game early on the early downs, we got them to more third and longs, and we were a lot more successful on third down. That's the difference in the game.
Yep. Now let's talk a little bit about moving forward. We all saw things in the second half that kind of fired us up about the potential moving forward. Jerry, what was the one thing you saw in the second half that gave you hope for the future, particularly as we go into the Syracuse game on Saturday?
Oh, there's no quit. Both the offense and the defense were really fighting and scrapping. And when you have a 0-3 team and they're down 31-7, boy, that's a quitter's paradise. And that didn't happen. I mean,
especially off Wake Forest. You're right. Mark?
Same thing. As a former player and coach for Florida State, I wasn't embarrassed on the effort at all. Those guys fought back and had a chance to tie the game at the end of the game. When, halfway through the third quarter, it was like, I mean, I turned it off and went and watched Ryder Cup for a little bit and came back to the game, DVR'd it. I mean, that's how frustrated I was with it. But looking at it, they did fight. I think if as a coaching staff, we can get them in better positions early in games for something, make something good happen, have something good happen. And it doesn't, like to Fish's point, it doesn't have to be something tricky or cute. It's just go out and play solid football, fly around, knock some people down and do some hard running, timely passing, and just look like a football team. I think, if we get that early momentum in games, we can sustain it because we've proven we'll fight through hard times, and I guess the question would be, can we stand prosperity if that happens?
That's the next step.
That's the next step. And you know what? That's, again, we're young. Keep saying young. We're an inexperienced football team because we do have some older guys that are just not experienced football players too, and we're an inexperienced football team, and you got to learn these lessons. And unfortunately, we have to learn them on Saturday afternoons with the first team against some quality opposition.
Bob?
Going in, we were looking for fewer mistakes, fewer penalties, fewer turnovers, 4 penalties, just the 1 interception at the very end on that, long pass to Parchment. We felt like this was a team that could compete, could be in games if they just if they just cut all those stupid mistakes in half. And they're getting so much better in that regard that it gives you enough optimism to think that they can compete with just about anybody in this conference. And it doesn't mean they're going to win them, but they'll be more competitive.
Fish?
They got to come out score first in this game. I don't know if they've been in the lead in a game yet this year from the beginning, but just some positive momentum so that team knows, hey, listen, we're here. I just think it would help them to, get the ball first. Don't put your defense out. Try to score on Syracuse and put the pressure on them so you can have some positive momentum. I just want to see them. It'd be nice for them to really come out of this game and win. I think this program and needs a win really, really bad. And I think they're doing a lot of positive things. It's not showing up on the scoreboard. Losing to Notre Dame the way they did, they had a shot. They had a shot in the Jacksonville State game. They had it. I thought they had a shot. Like I said, if it was 24-7 instead of 31-7, I really believe they would have won this game this last weekend. It's like they got so far behind. It's like in basketball. I hate to use the analogy when a team's down by like 30, you have to use so much energy to get back to the game that finally when you're close, you just run out of gas. And I think that's what happened at the end of this game. But just win one for the team and move on to the following week.
Well, yeah, win one and get some momentum because, listen, this is not – these teams in the ACC that we thought were going to be so great coming in this year are not. North Carolina's 2-2, got run out by Georgia Tech this weekend. Clemson cannot do anything on offense. Miami's, well, I mean, they're inconsistent. They're 2-2, but they're not world beaters. So if Notre Dame looks like a pretty good football team, they beat Wisconsin.
Who would ever thought that NC State, Wake Forest would be the games, that would be the toughest on the schedule. So like NC State, that's
Tuesday. I picked it. I picked that. I picked Arkansas over Texas A&M. Jimbo backing up that big raise in Aggie land. A lot of good stuff happened on Saturday.
Oh man!
But yeah, so if you get some momentum against Syracuse, some of these games that we thought might be a little bit really tilted to one way. For instance, North Carolina, who has never beat Florida State with Matt Brown as head coach, is now 2-2 and not looking very good. Then you got UMass. Then you got Clemson that's not playing very good on offense. They're really good on defense, but have not put many points on. Then you got NC State, who's been inconsistent. Miami, Boston College, and Florida might be the two best teams left on the schedule deep in the year.
Well, Boston College is at the end of the year sandwiched between two games and on the road. Like, you don't know. That's too far ahead to look. I mean, you don't know where the team's going to be mentally going on the road in November to play up at Chestnut Hill.
But I'm just saying, I'm just agreeing with you. If you get to that Syracuse game and get a good solid win, and you've got some momentum, you're not going to play. You're not going to play the 70 Steelers up at Chapel Hill. You're certainly not going to go be playing the 90s Dallas Cowboys at Clemson this year. So anyway, I think if they could find some momentum, building off the second half, just everyone was concerned about the backside of the schedule this year. Coming into the season, the backside of the schedule does not look near as intimidating as it did. Does anyone agree or disagree with me?
I would only say, I see the records. I agree with you on that completely. They are on the road. You look at that NC State, Clemson, Boston College, all on the road. And, if we get any injuries between now and then, it's daunting. So we just have to work, keep working. Like I keep saying, work at us and try to get better.
I just say win one. Just win one.
Yeah. We had the luxury of being able to look ahead and do all this. As the football team, they don't have that luxury. In situations like this, when things can be overwhelming, they got to keep their world small. What I mean by that is they need to take care of tomorrow. They need to take care of their preparation. They need to do everything they can. They don't have the luxury of what like we have. And if they could just take care of tomorrow, and then they can just take care of the first play against Syracuse, and then the second play, that's what they have to do. Because if you look at the whole picture, it can get overwhelming. It really can. And that's the psychology that Mike's got to deal with right now, is keeping their world small and concentrating on doing it. Because, I hear him talk all the time. All I know to do is go to work. And that's true. And I heard him say this too, that hard work doesn't guarantee success, but you can't have success without it. You still got to go out and make the plays, and at some point, I believe if what he's telling us and what you guys are telling me being out of practice. These guys are working hard, and it's evidenced by the fact that they fight every game. Eventually, it's going to happen. Okay, I don't see quit. If they're working like everybody says they're working, eventually it's going to crack. There are some things we can't control, like the injuries and all that stuff, and you just got to deal with it as it comes. But they just got to keep their world small.
Yeah. Well, of course, and I mean, obviously, that's expected, and that's what football teams do. But we do have afforded the opportunity to look forward based off what we see each week. So, and we've done this every week on the show, and it's what we do on Takeaway. I'm just saying, if you get that momentum with a big win against Syracuse, you don't go into, you're not playing an undefeated North Carolina team who's got a Heisman Trophy candidate on its roster. That's been blown up. So anyway, that was my point. I understand that what the football team's going to do. Let's move forward. All right, football season's been crazy. As we said, Arkansas is the state champion of Texas. Ohio State had a player quit in mid-season. If the ACC ended right now, it would be Virginia Tech versus Wake in the championship game. It's been a crazy year. Let's talk a little bit about the ACC. Right now, the two presumptive favorites to win the league, North Carolina and Clemson, are both two-loss teams. Wake Forest is 4-0, BC's 4-0, Virginia Tech's 3-1. Long story short, will the ACC get a team in the college football playoff based on what we know today?
No. Doesn't look like it. I mean, you look at the teams that are on the top of the league right now, where are their big wins going to come from? Who are they playing that's going to be a big win? Because, I mean, if they beat Clemson and North Carolina, that's not a big win anymore, right? So, where's that going to come from when you look relative to everything else that's out there? Plus, you look at their rosters. That's the other thing. They'll look at their rosters and say, okay, who are these championship caliber teams? I'd be hard pressed for anybody to say that they really are, regardless of what the record says, relative to, Ohio State, Oregon, SEC teams. It doesn't look good right now for sure.
Bob, you think a two-loss ACC team will be in the playoff?
No, I think Wake Forest is going to win the Atlantic at this rate, and I don't think too many people are going to look fondly on the Demon Deacons from the outside of the conference. Plus, you got, two SEC teams are going to be in it between Alabama and Georgia, so it's going to really push the ACC out as far as just viewing the conference's best teams. Don't count Ole Miss out yet.
Yep.
They really good offense, and their defense is much better. Yeah, I agree with you. If it's going to be a two, do you think a two-loss team could get into the college football playoff regardless of conference this year? Because there seems to be more parity in every conference this year than we've seen recently.
Well, if they're named Alabama or Ohio State, you could guarantee that. So,
well, are we going to 8?
No, we're still at 4 right now.
Oh, we are? Okay, then no.
I wish they'd go to 8.
They're going to 12, I thought.
Well, I don't know. They met this past week and did not make a decision. Bob, I know you and Jerry were at the board of before we wrap it up. Y'all were at the board of trustees meeting this week, where David Coburn addressed a variety of issues with athletics, or not necessarily issues, but subject matter. What was the biggest takeaway from those meetings?
Jerry, you want this one, or you want me to start? Because I was almost dumbfounded by how long David Coburn spoke and how much is on his plate. It just made me think this guy's an air traffic controller between all the planes he's trying to get landed and honestly put out fires. There are various lawsuits around the country with name, image, and likeness. There are, he's trying to calm the waters with Mike Norvell and saying how much he supports him. Meanwhile, on the plus side, you've got positives everywhere with Olympic sports, from a number one soccer team to success in volleyball, and basketball is about to start too. So I do think there's a lot of positives going on out there, but I was almost just stunned by how many things Coburn detailed that they're trying to work within athletics administration right now.
So Bob and I sat for both the FSU AA meeting and the board meeting, which was the board trustees meeting, was probably
Alcoholics Anonymous meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, that would be a big group at FSU.
Right now it is.
But wait a minute. No, they wouldn't be in AA. They're active drinkers. They're at FSU. We're not quitters. At any rate, but it was amazing to me. Like a board and trustee meeting was like 6 hours long, and it was jam-packed with information items about the university from the MagLab and all the grants Florida State academically is being awarded. It was very encouraging to listen to it. But what struck me, the point I'm trying to make, is a lot of our leadership at Florida State is new. And at the FSU AA meeting, that was the Athletic Association meeting more. But at the FSU Athletic Association meeting, a lot of people are having to be introduced as new, from the chairman to the president of the university, to Michael Alford is just starting his second year. And a lot of the Athletic Association people had yet to, really interact. So, that was interesting. And because there's so many new people at the table, they got more informational than a workshop, I would say. Would you agree, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, Jerry, we have a new president, new board of trustee chair, new Seminole booster volunteer chair, number of new people around the table. Drew Weatherford, former Florida State quarterback, is now on the board of trustees too. So there's a lot of new faces, and they're trying to find while they have a voice, I think they're trying to find how their voice applies within the structure of various committees, and how can they help? How did their past experiences, mesh with what Florida State is doing, and can Florida State do something better in certain areas?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for your time again today. I know that it's not always easy to have these podcasts when the team you're covering is 0-4, and I believe all of us are graduates of the university, so it can be quite challenging at times to come up with some positive stuff to talk about after 0-4 start. But obviously we do have the second half to feel optimistic about against going into the Syracuse game. But appreciate everyone joining me again today. We'll be back next week with another edition of Seminole Sidelines podcast presented by Alumni Hall. If you're not an Osceola subscriber, we'd like to thank you for listening to Seminole Sidelines, and ask that you give us a chance by going to theosceola.com, click on the subscription tab, and enter FSU 20, FSU 20 in the discount code field, and get 20% off our annual subscription rate of $74.95, or try us out for $6.95 a month. And again, thanks to Alumni Hall for sponsoring the show, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys, and hopefully we got better things to talk about after the Syracuse game.
Go Noles.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!